I am a conservative.
Rural farmers and urban workers united will never be defeated. We must stand together.
It would be hard to imagine two candidates further apart. Pat Robertson, the ultra-conservative who preaches fear of the Russians as avidly as the fear of God. Jesse Jackson, the civil rights campaigner and champion of the underdog. Poles apart politically, but as the election campaign gathers momentum, comparisons between these southern preachers are increasingly tempting. In a campaign liberally sprinkled with grey men, both are flamboyant orators, with followers frantic to share the extravagance of their dreams.
We the people, who have been the rejected stones, can now become the cornerstones and win the Super Bowl of American politics. We can win.
In a Robertson administration, I assure you that conservatives will no longer be a hunted species in Washington, D.C.
Pat Robertson may still labor under a lunatic fringe image, but he could produce the surprise of the Iowa caucuses. Some have suggested he might threaten Vice President George Bush for second place. Robertson has well-organized and dedicated supporters, a telling advantage in the caucus system. If he does score well here, he'll get more serious media attention, more momentum, and more votes. Jesse Jackson, too, seems poised for impressive gains in Iowa. The population here is just 1% black, and it's a mark of how successfully he's broadened his political base that Jackson expects support from around 10% of caucus voters. It's hardly likely either man will be his party's nominee, but after the big southern primaries next month, both could wield considerable influence over who is. Tim Hewitt, ITN, Des Moines, Iowa.
Now business news. Italian tycoon Carlo De Benedetti has increased his bid for Belgium's biggest company, Société Générale de Belgique, and he is suing the French group Financière de Suez. With that and other business stories, here's our business reporter, Glenn O'Glaser.
Signor De Benedetti is taking both civil and criminal action against Financière de Suez. He alleges that the massive purchase of shares last week, which left the French company with 10% of La Générale, was illegal. Signor De Benedetti has also increased his bid for a further 15% stake in the Belgian company from 3.5 to 4,000 francs a share. Meanwhile, a new Belgian group, Lesius, has been buying Société Générale shares. Lesius is made up of 25 Flemish industrialists. It won't say how many shares it has bought. Some other business stories in brief. The Chinese city of Shanghai is close to deciding which of 6 foreign consortia will build its $700 million metro system. It's one of China's biggest construction projects. Groups bidding are from Britain, France, West Germany, Italy, Canada and the United States. Sweden's biggest white-collar union has called off its 3-week-old strike. The union settled for a 4% pay rise, below Sweden's 5% inflation rate. And Rupert Murdoch is selling the New York Post for $37 million. Murdoch was forced to sell after violating American regulations on media ownership. Now the closing figures from the world's financial markets. Overall, stocks are down with a big fall in London, which is worried about industrial unrest in Britain and a possible further increase in base rates. The dollar had mixed fortunes. Against the West German mark, it's down 1/3 of a pfennig. It's also slightly down against the Japanese yen, while the pound fell 0.1 of a cent against the dollar.
The Council of Europe has ruled that MI5 surveillance of Labour MP Harriet Harman and Neil Kinnock's former press secretary Patricia Hewitt was a breach of their human rights. They want papers on them destroyed. During the 1970s, Harriet Harman worked for the National Council for Civil Liberties. MI5 classified her as subversive and tapped her telephone.
It casts a shadow of doubt over me, which is totally unjustified and which I bitterly resent. And I want my file destroyed.
An appeal court decision has finally awarded the San Diego Yacht Club the America's Cup 2 years after it won the trophy at sea. Their victory in a high-speed catamaran was challenged in court by the New Zealand entrants. They said it broke the rules. The Americans lost that case, but now they've won the appeal. It means San Diego will host the next regatta. That's it for now. We'll have more news later.
Now Steel I Span in Nikam Digital Stereo Sound.
I used to think that this next song was about the triumph of true love.
Starring Clint Eastwood, Tightrope.
Coming up after the ITN News headlines, 60 Minutes.
Tomorrow at 8:30, a new series of Executive Stress.
Oh, is Mr. Fairchild 50? I thought he was much older. Well, honestly, Donald, sometimes you treat me like a baby.
Don't be such a silly Billy. It's just that I have had more experience with this sort of thing, so naturally I assumed I would be conducting the interviews. Ergo, it seems eminently sensible that I should sit in the middle. Cobblers.
Comedy with Executive Stress starts tomorrow at 8:30 on Thames.